Mine is not on Amazon Prime. It could have been, or at least something based on it could have been if the creator hadn't gone off the edge. But
Yeah.
this is a twofer. So this is Kuffz Origins and Knife Hand Blindspot. So this is Richard Meyer, aka your boy Zach's. It's crowdfunded for like 3 years ago, I want to say. I did finally get my copies last year, but okay. So this is kind of a problem when you have when you don't do like Daniel does and wait to crowdfund your comic until the comic is actually done, or in some sort of state to send out. Because by the time I got it, I was like, oh, I'll read it at some point.
Yeah.
And by the way, I have had a bit of a soft spot for the Jawbreakers franchise, just because there are cool characters in it. The problem I have with especially these comics is that I know most of what I know about the characters from Zach's old videos instead of the actual pages themselves.
Yeah.
So what's the deal with these? They both share the same artist, whose name is escaping me. So give me a moment to go grab one of the comics from my shelf over here.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting style here. It's kind of a painted style, similar to, not quite like Bogdan's, but
yeah, it's a bit painterly.
Yeah.
Okay. Kenneth Lowe.
Okay.
And minor correction: Kuffz Origin, not Origins.
Yeah.
So these were two single floppy. Actually, there were two single floppy issue length stories that were released separately. Although the Knife Hands comic also featured a other comic that was called Garrison, which was a G.I. Joe parody written by, I'll just say written by Chuck Dixon. I don't know how much Zach contributed to those.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I noticed about Zach is that he never really wrote his own stories entirely.
I didn't know that.
Well, you remember, like, he always was getting like help from Chuck Dixon. This one, it's help from Michael Barron.
Oh, okay.
So,
Ninja says he lost interest in Jawbreakers after the sequel that ended with most of them getting killed.
Yeah, and he still hasn't released Jawbreakers Forever to actually resolve that.
Yeah.
The only defense I'll make of it is that he wrote and conceived of the story originally back before he made $500,000 on a single crowdfunding campaign. Like, he thought it was just going to be, okay, what's my most exciting story about the Jawbreakers? I'll just get it out of me and move on with my life. And then he found himself with an accidental franchise. So
yeah.
I could be a little sympathetic about it. And that's why the next comic, Grand Bazaar, which I actually rather enjoyed, was a prequel.
Yeah.
But I've pussyfooted around enough. So Kuff's Origin is the better of the two, in my opinion. Because is rough the right word for this? Expressive? I'm not quite sure what to call this. Because it's like it's not sloppy exactly, because there's clearly a good line work underneath the paint. But like, the paint is also like, colors don't necessarily stay in the lines all the time. Like, there's a lot of paint outlines for things. It does kind of feel like a 4 color comic book, but like in the age of Photoshop. Because I would be curious how this would look if you just had 80s or 90s style Marvel colors on it.
Yeah.
But the actual line work is quite good. But so the Kuffz is the better of the two. But Zach, as always, has to be a little bit too cute with it. Because you pick up something called Kuffz Origin and you assume, it's the origin of Kuffz, the character who's basically Luke Cage if he had grown up as Carlton from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Which is not a character that really comes through the writing. It's just his description of where he comes from. So it's like you get a little bit of it where he's you get some of the flashback, but the true cleverness is because he's fighting a villain called Blackstone, who's like a big muscular super guy, and he has hired the services of a woman named Origin, whose psychic power is that if you can, basically she can go in and mess with your memory and how you remember the past. So you see Kuff's origin in the course of things with like her interposing herself and changing things. But he manages to turn the tables.
Okay.
And then on the last page, for some reason, you have Knife Hands looking down at him. I don't get why.
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't remember this. Ninja, was Knife Hands mute? Because I remember that his backstory is that he was a kid. He was kidnapped and he had a lot of like fingers and stuff cut off, but I don't remember if his tongue was too.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if he was mute or
that's
not.
another thing that never actually came up in the comics, but was in the videos where he talked about his comics.
He might have been just because he was trying to make him like Snake Eyes.
Ninja says he pretended to be mute.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So that seems to have given Zach a visit from, as he would call it back in the day, the Good Idea Fairy, where the entire Knife Hands comic is told without a single speech balloon. Now, my issue with this is, first off, I actually wanted to learn more about Knife Hands as a personality, because I actually always thought he was kind of my favorite, though I think Kuffz is probably the best character, just because he actually has a personality.
Yeah.
What do you know? And I was very disappointed by that choice. Also, the art doesn't really, where it is kind of messy, it made a lot of the story a little hard to follow. I had to keep double checking things to make sure I understood what was going on. It's basically Knife Hands versus a Dr. Doom knockoff. At one point, he fights a Metal Gear knockoff to save the rest of the Jawbreakers. Which, guess what? I don't even know the name of the Dr. Doom knockoff because there's no dialogue. I don't know anything more than I did before about Knife Hand's personality. And at the end of it, Hell Priest is giving him a glare with no dialogue, so I don't know what's going on. I don't see what Knife Hands did that was different than what they usually do, because these are not superheroes who are worried about killing.
Yeah.
So it's just like, what's the point of this story? I like stories.
The point is, Zach was trying to make money.
Yes. And I don't think I can really recommend either of these, especially I don't remember the last time he actually did a campaign. I might have unsubscribed from his mailing list. I forget. But like at the prices you'd be asked to pay for these, like $25 or $15, no, like just no.
Yeah.
Like if I was going into my local comic book shop and I was interested in the Jawbreakers universe and I could pick this off the shelf for $5, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Ninja makes a good point. He says you're supposed to have just the main character not speaking. Everyone else should be speaking.
I think the idea is he was trying to do like Marvel, like 20-ish years ago, did an event where every single issue that they had was published without dialogue. Just a little stunt to try to goose sales a bit. So I think that's what he was trying for. But yeah, this would have been better if we'd had other characters responding verbally to him. But again, just like the overall painterly, somewhat sloppy, over good line art, color style, just made a lot of it hard to follow. Like the characters themselves are usually pretty clear, but the backgrounds, as you can see, kind of devolve into various pastel paints.
Yeah. I will say, sorry, go ahead.
It's actually a lot like the backgrounds in that Deadpool crossover I reviewed a while back.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of some of the stories in the heavy metal that I reviewed. Was it last week or the week before? Some of them kind of had this similar style to it.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like I kind of reviewed these because I paid money for them, so I'll read them and get a chance to talk about them. But not too impressed.
Yeah, that's too bad.
The Garrison story in the back was. I'll talk about that too. So the Garrison, that was him. He mentioned how hard he worked trying to match the exact shades of color from old G.I. Joe comics back in the day.
Yeah.
It's like it looked like an old 80s G.I. Joe comic on every detail. And the overall premise is, and this is a thing that was funny to hear him talk about it, but it wasn't as funny in the execution. Okay, so you have a G.I. Joe equivalent and you have a Cobra equivalent who fight each other. And it's always non-lethally because it's based on the cartoon, right?
Right, yeah.
And his thing was like, if you're back in the Army days, if he lost a piece of equipment, he better go find it wherever it was. It didn't matter if you dropped your whatever, 10 miles into the desert with jihadis all around. You better get that scope.
Yeah.
And so he has a character who's like a Storm Shadow or a Snake Eyes equivalent who throws a ninja star that gets lost in the course of a mission. And he's like, you better get that back. Uncle Sam and this man's army paid for that ninja star. That is part of your official kit. From the Sergeant Slaughter style drill sergeant.
Yeah.
And so he goes to try and buy a knockoff. And in the course of things runs into another, a Cobra agent with having the same problem and a local gun nut. And so the comic is basically about a bunch of terrorists actually attacking and killing a good number of the Joes and Cobras. And they kind of have to team up to fight them off. And the Joes learn how great lethal force is. Although you do have one guy's like, oh man, this gun is so loud. I prefer my laser blaster. So it's like it's probably the best of the three here that I read. It's included in the back of the Knife Hands Blindspot trade paperback. Since Chuck Dixon seems to have moved on, I don't think that we'll get a follow-up of any sort. And I don't think we would need a follow-up of any sort. And quite frankly, if anything I've talked about sounds interesting, he really isn't selling them. He's had 5 years. I'm going to be very mean. He's had 5 years to get some sort of distribution outside of the occasional random Indiegogo campaign going. And since he's very comfortable pirating Marvel and DC books to review, ahoy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's unfortunate. Yeah. Yeah, I think anybody in the indie sphere, and I got to do this at some point where, I got to set up like a website, to sell all my books, I think a lot of indie creators would benefit from doing that.
Right. Or even just, if you don't feel like handling your own store, setting up something on KDP, because there isn't a law that says that you have to keep selling them at the original production price forever.
Yeah.
Just take out some of the extras and just have the story available.
Yeah.
But sorry, this got very negative. I'll just be very frank that Zach has been annoying me for a while now, and I have tried not to let that interfere with my objectivity when I've been reading his stuff. But I'm also comparing what's on the page versus what he described during the campaigns, and it just doesn't seem to quite doesn't quite live up to it. So
Yeah.
oh well.
Yeah.